Globe is proud to be a pioneer, as we are the first telco and digital service provider in the Philippines to adopt the Energy Regulatory Commission-initiated Retail Aggregation Program, or RAP.
We've really been at the forefront of bringing renewable energy into the Philippine telco space. We're not just pioneers. We also implemented early adoption back in 2019. This was when we started shifting our high energy utilizing facilities, think major offices and data centers, to renewables. We did this by really leveraging initiatives like the Retail Competition and Open Access, which is our COA, and then later Green Energy Option Program, which is JOP. That's led to a significant achievement, 33 of our high energy utilizing sites being powered by renewable energy today. That's a strong foundation.
The shifting of more than 3,000 of our cell sites and other small facilities to renewables through RAP is expected to avoid an estimated 5.5 million kilograms of GHG emissions in carbon dioxide equivalent every year, and therefore improves our efforts to build a greener network. This initiative also provides business value by reducing the company's operational expenditure with at least 10% savings from our electricity costs due to sourcing from renewables, and improving risk management by lowering dependence on imported fossil fuels.
This isn't just a side project for us. This is a direct operational step in our climate action strategy. It's about fulfilling our net zero goal, which is fully aligned with the International Science-Based Targets Initiative, SBTI. It really shows our serious commitment to sustainability.
We are proud to partner with Globe on its shift to renewable energy. As Globe continues to connect the nation, ACEN is doing its part by growing our renewable energy capacity to support the country's green transition. By uniting our strengths and aspirations, we can go forward together and help make a lasting impact on the lives of more Filipinos.
This is truly exciting, and we thank Globe and the rest of the management team for the trust and the partnership and the synergies that we are realizing for Ayala. And we very much look forward being your partners in this amazing journey. Gawin nating napakabuti ang ating mundo.
Karamihan talaga ay depende doon sa household level, yung maliit na mga portable generator set na kung saan isang malaking threat sa environment. Doon nagsimula yung application ng Sabang Renewable Energy Corporation or SREC.
Talagang kailangan ng mga teachers na bumaba pa ng bayan para lang magpa-xerox ng mga test papers. Unlike ngayon, isang pindot lang ng printer ng laptop, okay na siya, nakaka-produce na kami.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, patuloy pa rin yung pagsiservisyo ng SREC sa amin. Dumating yung pandemya sa loob ng 2 taon, hindi tayo pinabayaan. O panahon ng bagyo, salamat sa opisina ng SREC. Dahil isa rin po silang ginawa natin na evacuation ng mga tao. May tumutulong sa panahon ng bagyo, panahon ng pandemya, nandyan yung SREC upang gampanan yung kanilang serbisyo, gampanan yung pagtulong sa tao.
Before we begin the Livable Cities Lab, please take a moment to watch the safety briefing on the screen.
Your safety is our priority. This video will guide us on what to do in case an emergency happens while we are in AIM. Your safety is our priority. This video will guide us on what to do in case an emergency happens while we are in AIM. In case of fire, follow the race procedure. Rescue anyone in immediate danger. Alert others by activating the alarm system and use fire extinguishers if safe to do so. Contain the fire by closing the door if you're the last person to leave the room, and evacuate the building using the nearest exit. Remember, do not use the lift or the elevator. In case of earthquake, execute drop, cover, and hold. Drop under sturdy desk or table, cover yourself, and hold on. Be alert and watch out for falling objects. Once the shaking stops, exit the building and follow your evacuation plan. You are on the ground floor, FPH case room. From here, just exit and you'll find the emergency exit on your left side. The hallway will lead you to the parking area along Gamboa Street. That is your designated evacuation area. Once you are out of the building, do not go back. Wait for our instruction if it's safe to return or not. If you're hurt or injured, or know someone in need of medical attention, there will be medical personnel at the evacuation area and they will help you. If you have other concerns, you may approach any of our security personnel and they will assist you. Thank you for your cooperation. Stay safe.
Kindly stand for the Philippine National Anthem.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiling, telas ng sinakanan, alam ng puso, sa dikit mo'y buhay. Upang hinirang, kuya ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagagang putok sa simoy at sa langit mong bangaw, ay hinatang tulad awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang lang matawad mo'y tagumpay na naghihingi, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pamay di maghihingi. Luman ang araw ng warhagin pansin ka, mo'y langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya ng kartay mga amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
You may now take your seats. Please focus on the screen for some key reminders. Reminders for on-site guests. Please put your phone on silent or vibrate mode. Maintain silence while speakers are presenting and the panel session is ongoing. Live questions may be asked during the panel discussion. Using the gooseneck microphones in front of you, state your name and affiliation, then your short and direct question. This lab will be recorded for documentation purposes. It is also available on our Facebook page at Liveable Cities Philippines. For Zoom and Facebook participants, please type in your questions via the chat box or comment section. Vote for questions you like by clicking on the thumbs up icon. To help us improve our labs, please answer the feedback form. You may request for a certificate of attendance by answering the form. Keep us in the loop. Feel free to tag our social media accounts in your posts and stories. Good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to the second Livable Cities Lab of 2026. We are excited to have you here, whether in person or online, as we tackle today's topic of energy transition to renewables. Today, we will discuss how cities can accelerate their shift to cleaner, more affordable, and more resilient energy systems, how local governments, national agencies, and the private sector can bridge the gap between policy and implementation and turn energy challenges into real opportunities for Filipino communities. Before we start, may we request everyone to please stand up for a quick photo opportunity while we have all of our speakers on site.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone. Photo first. Photo or did not happen at all. To officially launch this critical conversation, please join me in giving a warm welcome to the Chairman of Liveable Cities Philippines and the Chairman of Rizalino S. Navarro Policy Center for Competitiveness at the Asian Institute of Management, Mr. Guillermo de Luz. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you and good afternoon. Welcome to this Livable Cities Lab. Welcome to our Philippine audience listening on Zoom and Facebook. We are broadcasting live from the Asian Institute of Management, and I'd like to welcome all of you here on site to the AIM. As we like to say in Livable Cities, never let a good crisis go to waste. And this is one of those periods in our history when we are in a crisis and we think that we should look at the opportunities for a permanent transition into something better coming out of this crisis. So we've seen all the problems that our fellow Filipinos are facing. We've got some of the highest electricity costs in Southeast Asia. For households, businesses, and local governments, rising energy prices affect economic competitiveness, public service delivery, and quality of life every single day. For many LGUs, electricity costs consume a significant portion of operational budgets and resources that could otherwise go to healthcare, education, mobility, and disaster preparedness. For large corporates, also energy costs and electricity costs remain a concern. At the same time, we are heavily dependent on imported fossil fuels, coal, oil, resources that expose us to volatile global markets, supply chain disruptions, and geopolitical forces far beyond our control. Not to mention the impact that they have on our environment and on our sustainability. So as an archipelago of more than 7,000 islands, our energy systems remain fragmented and uneven, with many provinces and island communities still experiencing rotating brownouts, limited transmission infrastructure, and costly diesel dependence. But here is what we must also recognize. The Philippines is richly endowed with renewable energy potential: solar, wind, hydro, geothermal, biomass. The resources are there. National targets aim to bring renewables to 35% of our power mix by 2030. That's only 4 years from now, and 50% by 2040. Recent policy reforms have opened new doors for investment and local participation on both the supply side and on the demand side. So the challenge is no longer whether we're moving to transition. The question really is how to make the transition happen and how to make it happen as quickly as possible, preferably at the local level where we think we can have the greatest impact and where it matters the most. So this year's theme, Cities That Work Together, speaks directly to that challenge. It recognizes that no single city or sector can solve this alone. In a fragmented archipelago nation like ours, true and inclusive energy development requires moving beyond isolated planning into collaborative networks where cities, national agencies, the private sector, and communities co-create lasting solutions. Today's lab is where we turn this recognition into action. We are here to equip our mayors, our planners, and our audience today with practical knowledge and clear pathways to accelerate the clean energy transition in their localities. And we are particularly honored to have a great panel speaking before us today, representing local government, national government, and the corporate sector, both from the user side, the consumption side of renewables, and the supplier side. So let me just read out who they are, and then they will be properly introduced during the program. So first of all, I'd like to thank Honorable Mayor Joy Belmonte for joining us today. Mayor of Quezon City, the largest city in the country, and a city that's moving towards an energy transition. From Department of Energy, the Renewable Energy Management Bureau, Liza Pangilinan. Thank you, Juan. From Globe, we have Raymond Aguilar, who will speak about Globe's transition into renewables. Raymond, thank you. From the city of Makati, another city that is moving very quickly into renewables, Engineer George William Kasing Hong. And yet another city also moving into an energy transition, representing San Juan City, Brian Geli. And then coming online later on, Mr. Quintin Pastrana, founder and CEO of WEnergy, an off-grid solar supplier working in parts around the country, mainly off-grid, such as Palawan. So again, on behalf of Liveable Cities Philippines, I want to extend a special thanks to our partners and to all our distinguished speakers and panelists. Every brownout, every fuel-driven rate hike, and every delayed renewable energy project carries real costs for Filipino communities. The transition to clean energy is no longer optional. It is critical to our energy security, economic competitiveness, and long-term development. The question is no longer whether we act, but how quickly we can turn commitments into implementation. Thank you and welcome to the lab. And now to guide us through our panel presentations and introduce each of our distinguished speakers, please welcome Yenny Gonzalez, Project Director of Liveable Cities Philippines.
Thank you, Bill. Let's begin where every good transition begins, with the bigger picture. Before cities can act, they need to know the rules of the road, the targets, and the support that's already in place. So let's start with the national landscape, the policies and mechanisms shaping the Philippine energy transition and opening real doors for local governments and the private sector. There's no one better to guide us through it with our first speaker, who has spent her career at the forefront of the country's renewable energy policy. She is the Division Chief of the Technical Services Management Division at the Department of Energy's Renewable Energy Management Bureau, where she leads some of the programs you'll be hearing a lot about today: the Green Energy Auction Program, the Green Energy Option Program, and the Renewable Portfolio Standards, among others. She earned her Green Finance Specialist degree with the Renewable Academy in Berlin, and she represents the Philippines on the global stage at IRENA, ASEAN RESSN, and APEC EGN RET. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Liza Pangilinan.
Thank you, Ms. Yen. Distinguished speakers, organizers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of the Department of Energy, I am pleased to be here with you today for this Liveable Cities Lab with the theme Energy Transition to Renewable Energy. Today, I will be presenting the National Renewable Energy Transition Framework and Policy Direction, focusing on renewable energy targets, key reforms, more importantly, the available options, particularly in the context of building livable and sustainable cities.
because at the end of the day, the success of the energy transition will not only depend on national policies, but also on a strong and decisive local leadership and action. So with the barriers and challenges identified by the government in the development of renewable energy in the Philippines, Republic Act 9513, otherwise known as the Renewable Energy Act of 2008, provides fiscal and non-fiscal incentives to accelerate the exploration and development of RE resources to achieve energy self-reliance and to mitigate the effect of the climate change. The RE Act also gives birth to what we coined as the Big Show, which stands for biomass, geothermal, solar, hydro, ocean, and wind. So these are the incentives. The RE law provides non-fiscal and fiscal incentives. The fiscal incentives primarily aim to lower the investment costs, such as the 7-year income tax holiday, the 10% corporate income tax rate, the duty-free importation of machinery, equipment, and materials, and the zero VAT rate, among others. While the non-fiscal, these are the policy mechanisms, the feed-in tariff system, the net metering program, the green energy option program, the renewable portfolio standards, and the RE market. So the DOE updated the Philippine Energy Plan for the planning horizon period of 2023 to 2050, with RE dominating the power generation mix with the following outlook scenario. For the reference scenario, we have target at least 35% RE share in the power generation mix by 2030 and 50% by 2040 to 2050. So as shown in the slide, the clean energy scenario 1 and the clean energy scenario 2, they use the same generation mix. The only difference is that under the clean energy scenario 1, we have the offshore wind capacity of 19 gigawatt, while the clean energy scenario 2, we have a higher OSW capacity, which is 50 gigawatt. These are ambitious targets, but they are necessary to secure our energy future and meet our climate commitments. And achieving these targets will require coordinated action not only at the national level, but more importantly at the local level. So these are the RE share. As of the latest figures, the renewable energy accounts for 25.4% of the country's power generation mix. So 25.4%, so we still have 4.6% to go for before 2030. So while this is a strong starting point, it also shows that we still have a gap to close in order to reach our 23 target. So across technologies, we see contributions from geothermal, hydropower, solar, wind, and biomass, each playing a role in strengthening our energy system. But what this really tells us is this: there is still significant room for expansion, and this is where LGUs come in as enablers of the projects, facilitators of investments, and champions of sustainable energy development. So this is the power energy generation mix. Today, the renewable energy plays a growing role in our power energy mix. By the end of 2025, RE accounted for about 25.4% of the country's gross power generation, up to 22.2% from 2024. So we have an increase of around 3%. However, as you can see in the slide, coal still dominates the country's source of electricity, contributing about 63% of gross power generation. This reality reminds us that the energy transition is not something that happens overnight. It is a process that requires careful planning, substantial investments, technological innovation, and a strong public participation. The good news is that interest in renewable energy continues to grow. So these are the energy transition strategies. The DOE has devised the following strategies under the Philippine Energy Transition Program. First is to accelerate the deployment of renewable energy projects with a special focus on the offshore wind development to meet our target of at least 35% by 2030 and 50% by 2040. Build and develop a smart and green grid transmission system to accommodate and manage the additional RE capacity that will be coming online. build and or expand the necessary port infrastructure to support the OSW and other marine-based energy resources and development projects. Fourth is to provide an avenue for early decommissioning or repurposing of coal plants. Fifth is to mainstream energy efficiency and conservation. Institutionalizing energy efficiency and conservation measures is also prioritized in both government and private sector organization through energy performance standards and labeling standard and demand-side management. And lastly is to decarbonize the transport sector through the use of electric vehicles. So these are the market offtake. More investors in the energy projects are familiar with power supply agreement of 15 to 20 years with guaranteed capacities investors. So to further accelerate nationwide RE deployment and stimulate investment recovery in the country, we have instituted policies and market-driven mechanisms such as the feed-in tariff, the renewable portfolio standard. This is one of the RE policy mechanism which places an obligation to the mandated sectors to source out their electricity from RE. The Green Energy Auction Program provides additional market for RE through a competitive electronic bidding of RE capacities. The net metering program, the expanded solar program, and the Green Energy Option Program that provides end users the option to choose RE resources as their source of energy. And lastly is the renewable energy market. This will serve as an avenue for transparent and fair trading of RE certificate. Moving forward, to pave a smart RE transition pathway, we also made sure that all RE market policy development, both mandatory and voluntary, are in place. While there are several policies and mechanisms supporting the country's renewable energy transition, I will not be covering all of them in detail, but instead I will focus on the two consumer-based incentives and opportunities that have the most direct impact on consumer engagement. First is the net metering program. This is a consumer-based incentives. Under this program, the consumers or end users, particularly the household and small businesses, are allowed to install renewable energy system for their own use, like typically the solar rooftop, and export any excess electricity back to the grid. Or you will be called as the prosumer. You are the producer and at the same time the consumer of electricity. Second is the Green Energy Option Program, which provides end user the option to choose RE resources as their electricity source. This program allows qualified end users to directly source their electricity from renewable energy suppliers. Unlike other mechanisms, JOP is a market-based and voluntary, giving consumers the ability to actively choose clean renewable energy. So these are the net metering statistics. As of April 2026, we have a total qualified end users of 22,852 with a capacity of 222,734.72 kilowatt peak. So as you can see, Luzon grid has the highest capacity of 164.570.57 or around 73%, followed by Visayas, and last is the Mindanao grid with 5.43%. This distribution reflects differences in infrastructure availability, market readiness, and consumer awareness across regions. Overall, the data suggests that net metering is gaining traction, continues to expand as awareness and affordability improve. Next is the green energy option. In terms of the green energy option, JOP adoption is currently led by Luzon grid with the majority of registered end users located in this region with about 752 JOP end users, followed by Visayas and Mindanao with a total of 877 JOP end users. So JOP is quite unique to the Philippines and is very attractive to businesses for several reasons. First is cost savings, particularly in electricity costs, because this is a non-regulated activity, meaning you have the you can directly negotiate with your RE suppliers. Second is sustainability, especially for the um, RE 100 company with net zero targets and decarbonization goals. And lastly is the business branding. This will especially for the hotels like Seda, you can showcase that your hotel is 100% clean, using clean energy. So to enhance, then this is the enhancement of the green energy option. We have made several enhancements. We lowered the threshold from 100 kilowatt to 50 kilowatt, allow aggregation of smaller for flexibility, improve supply flexibility, enable REC allocation to end users. So you will now own the RECs instead of the distribution utilities. So you can have the renewable energy certificate, and this can be traded in the voluntary renewable energy market. And we also streamline the JOP operating permit process from 22 days. It will now 10 days. So these are the list of the renewable energy suppliers. We have a total of 24 RE suppliers from the EDC Group, Aboitiz Group, Ayala Group, and other RE suppliers. So these are the best practices. We have the first DOE Sustainable Energy Awards in 2024. So the Iloilo province wins the LGU category because of their renewable energy activities. Like they have the Iloilo Progren, Iloilo province goes renewable energy. They have the renewable energy program, and lastly, the allocated 5%, 0.5% of their internal revenue allotment for the RE project and infrastructure. They help the investors who wants to invest RE in their province. Next is the Samar. The provincial government of Samar wins the LGU category of our second sustainable energy last year, December 2025. This shows how local government can drive RE adoption through policy and investment. And despite the risk and market exposures faced by the renewable energy project, the sector continues to demonstrate strong long-term investment potential. In fact, the Philippines is the world's most attractive emerging market for renewable energy investment, as released by the 2025 Bloomberg NEF Climate Report, where the Philippines ranked fourth among the world's most attractive emerging market for renewable energy investment. So to end, I would like to say that transitioning to renewable energy is not a choice, but a responsibility. Renewable energy is no longer just about regulatory requirements. It's about creating opportunities for businesses, to grow for consumers, to have more choices, and for all of us to contribute to a more sustainable future. Thank you for your kind attention. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Ms. Liza. So much of the groundwork has already been laid. The targets are clear: 35% renewable by 2030 and 50% by 2040. So we're not far off. And the mechanism to get there already exists. The one I'd like to underline for everyone is the JOP, or the Green Energy Option Program, which lets a consumer choose 100% RE. And it's about to open up even wider as a threshold drops and aggregation becomes possible. So like you said, RE plays a growing role in power generation mix. It requires careful planning, strong public perception, which is why we are here today. A quick reminder before we go on, if you have questions, please drop it in the Zoom Q&A for our online guests or in the Facebook Live comments. And for those who are on site, we'll tackle them later during the panel discussion. So that gives us the national picture, but policy only comes alive when someone puts it into practice. So let's come down from the national level to the rooftop and public buildings of one of our biggest cities, where those communities are already becoming real programs and measurable results. Our next speaker leads one of the most ambitious urban sustainability agendas in the country. She is the first woman to serve as mayor of Quezon City, the largest city in the Philippines. And she's known for governance that is progressive, data-driven, and deeply committed to climate action and gender equality. Under her leadership, Quezon City has put solar panels on public buildings, rolled out solar-powered streetlights, and moved city facilities into clean energy. Her climate work has earned international recognition, and she continues to champion a city that is resilient, inclusive, and sustainable. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Joy Belmonte.
To Mr. Beluz and to the rest of my fellow speakers who are here today, and to all the guests and participants joining us on-site and online. Isang makakalikasang araw po sa ating lahat. Thank you to Liveable Cities Philippines for the opportunity to take part in these important discussions. Allow me to begin with a question for the room. Sino dito ang nasa-stress kapag nakikita ang kanilang electric bill taas ng kamay? Dalawang kamay pati. Ay, hindi nasa-stress si Raymond. In light of the energy crisis, there has been a lot of conversation surrounding the cost of power among households. Some users lament a rapid surge in their charges as their bills go up to tens of thousands of pesos, thrice or quadruple times the amount they used to pay every month. Every household in the country has had to recalibrate their budget, stretching their money a little further to accommodate the higher electricity cost alongside other expenses and needs. According to Ember, a London-based energy think tank, the Philippines now has the highest residential electricity rates in Southeast Asia, also charging high for commercial and industrial spaces. The report says this is driven by a surge in retail prices, which in turn has been attributed largely to our fragmented fuel-dependent system. While our neighbors rely on the government budget to cushion the cost of power, we rely on the market. So every movement in global commodity prices reflects on our monthly bills. The think tank called for policies that empower households and establishments to shift to rooftop solar. Introducing loan schemes similar to the GSIS Ginhawa Solar Energy Loan for roughly 40 million workers in the private sector. Enabling smaller plug-and-play kits similar to Germany's balcony solar framework, allowing renters and homeowners to easily generate their own clean energy, and introducing a government-led program to build batteries at scale. The resources are there, since the Philippines has some of the most consistent solar irradiation on the planet. And as it turns out, the demand is rising as well, as ordinary Filipinos now see the value of solar energy. Solar installers have reported that they receive multiple inquiries every day since the energy crisis started. Some even have to turn clients away, and waiting lists have stretched from days to weeks. The demand is so intense that component prices have surged, with the cost of some solar panels rising up to 30%. The new Energy Academy, which trains solar installers and technicians, produced 636 graduates last year. It is now racing to triple that number. In Quezon City, our shift to renewable energy started in light of our commitment to address a broader crisis. It is part of a comprehensive plan we laid out after declaring a climate emergency in 2019. Under our enhanced local climate action plan, we identified 24 priority actions anchored on 7 thematic pillars. It is comprehensive and locally relevant by design. When we looked at our own greenhouse gas footprint, the data told us something very clear. 60% of Quezon City's emissions comes from stationary energy, or electricity consumption in buildings, homes, and facilities. And so, the path forward was clear. If we want to bring our emissions down, we have to reimagine how we generate and use energy. That led us to 3 clear priorities: solarization, green building standards, and energy efficiency and conservation. Guided by this plan, we solarized 5 City Hall buildings and 3 city-owned hospitals to date. Our public schools are following suit, with 18 of 25 installations already completed, scheduled for this year. And in just the first 5 months of 2026 alone, we generated over 7 million pesos in energy savings. This includes electricity we exported back to the grid. But we are not stopping at our buildings. With support from C40 Cities, which is a network of global cities committed to ambitious climate action, we created the rooftop solar dashboard, a digital tool that maps every solar installation in Quezon City, tracks installed capacity and potential demand, and identifies buildings suited for net metering and distributed energy resources. It guides our investments and helps us scale our transition strategically. Our tripartite agreement with Meralco and the Energy Regulatory Commission allows us to streamline requirements and expand access to solar energy options for every Q citizen. A public one-stop shop is currently being established, handling everything from net metering applications to distributed energy resources. We will also integrate this assistance in our Helpline 122, which is our comprehensive helpline that addresses all issues of our citizens. We are also setting up a dedicated team from our Department of Engineering and Department of Building official who can guide citizens on technical and permitting requirements and prevent them from being scammed by fly-by-night distributors. Managing our power consumption has been just as critical. All public libraries and city hospitals have now shifted to 100% LED lighting. In the QC Hall compound, 99% of lighting fixtures have been converted to LED. We have also designated energy conservation officers across all city government departments, mainstreaming efficiency in every office. While energy-saving practices have long been part of our operations, we intensified our efforts in light of the Middle East crisis. As a result, over the last 2 months, the Quezon City Hall compound reduced its electricity consumption by 28%. We have also brought our energy-saving measures down to all 142 barangays across the city. And Secretary Sharon Guerin we are her favorite city because of that. Alam ni Liza yan siguro. Ultimately, sustainable energy means integrating it into the built environment of our city. In 2025, we passed the Quezon City Green Building Code, a landmark ordinance that sets the baseline for all new and existing structures, townships, and residential units, rolled out through a phased implementation approach. The code establishes 4 universal measures: heat-resistant roofing, energy-efficient lighting, efficient water fixtures, and rainwater harvesting. It sets out 5 major criteria for how sustainability is integrated into how buildings are designed, built, and run, including renewable energy and energy efficiency. As a result, we are projecting a 12% reduction in building sector emissions. But for households, the benefits are more immediate and tangible. A reduction of 23 to 41% on their electricity bill, or up to 700 pesos back in their pocket every month. Beyond our built environment, we are also transforming how our city moves, from procuring electric and hybrid service vehicles to converting 2 of our libreng sakay routes out of 8 routes into fully electric fleets, with 16 units already deployed. And we will have 10 more electric buses plying another route number 2, by the end of this year. Parallel to the city government's efforts, we also strive to promote this transition to renewables among our stakeholders and communities, creating a network of clean energy champions in the broader spaces of the city. We conduct green practices orientations, which has promoted practical tips on energy conservation to over 6,000 4Ps. Yan yung Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program ng pamahalaan. So we work with them and have reached 6,000 beneficiaries to date. Our annual Green Awards has recognized organizations, barangays, SKs, and other groups for their outstanding efforts in climate action, including clean energy adoption. Our solar mentorship program has provided representatives across local and national government and the private sector with technical guidance on solar adoption across public structures. Quezon City is also part of Project Volta, led by the Center for Empowerment, Innovation, and Training on Renewable Energy and UN Women, which aims to empower women leaders to take part in the transition to renewable energy. Our city has also become home to a growing number of EV dealerships, making clean mobility more accessible to our Q citizens. The fruits of our labor have not gone unnoticed. We are proud to be recognized by the Department of Energy for our efforts in promoting sustainable energy. Based on DOE assessments, Quezon City achieved a perfect score in compliance with the Government Energy Management Program, reflecting the city's strong commitment to institutionalizing energy efficiency within government operations. More than accolades, we are humbled by what it reminds us, that the work is far from over and all of us are called to do more. We offer Quezon City as proof that the transition is not only possible but necessary, that cities can and must be the architects of a more resilient future. But we cannot do this alone. With our partners across the international community, government, and civil society, we are building a legacy, one that ensures that the energy that powers our cities does not cost us our future. Again, I'm very grateful for the opportunity given to us to present the Quezon City case study, and we hope nakakatulong ito sa iba nating kapwa lungsod. At nandito rin po ang aking staff para pakinggan ang magandang halimbawa ng Makati, which you started it actually, Makati. And of course, to our city, San Juan, and of course, our mayor of San Juan, Mayor Francis Zamora, he is the president of the League of Cities of the Philippines, and hopefully, with his leadership, kayang-kaya niya na ang advokasiyang ito na pinaglalaban natin ay ipahiwatig niya at ipakalat niya sa lahat ng mga mayor sa buong Pilipinas. So saludo kay Mayor Francis Zamora. So marami pong salamat at isang magandang araw po sa ating lahat.
Before Mayor Joy leaves us, can we have another photo with our speakers? Miguel, because you weren't able to join earlier. Sorry, time out lang. If you don't mind. Bill, if you don't mind standing up with the rest of the speakers, we'll take photos. Thank you, Mayor Joy. As you can see, Quezon City is the largest city in the country and still has moved on to so many fronts at once. Solar on public buildings, solar streetlights, city facilities running on clean energy, and now they're transitioning into EVs. So the lesson for the rest of us in smaller communities, size is not an excuse to wait. If the biggest city can do it, then scale is not the barrier we sometimes tell ourselves that we are in. So we hope we can have enough energy savings like in my house from 7,000 a month to 7 pesos. So the national level, then the city level, that's what we heard earlier. So what about the companies that power so much of our daily lives? Our next speaker takes us inside the private sector's own transition, told from the perspective of one of the largest players in the country. He brings nearly 3 decades of experience with Globe Telecom. You started when you were 10. Where he serves today as Vice President and Head of Risk and Property Management, a licensed civil engineer from De La Salle University, hail, hail, with deep expertise in risk management, business continuity, and operations. He has been a driving force behind Globe's shift to renewable energy sourcing from geothermal to hydropower, and behind the company's wider energy efficiency and sustainability efforts across its nationwide operations. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Raymond Aguilar of Globe Telecom.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's hard to follow the DOE and Honorable Mayor Joy in a talk like this, but thank you very much. I'm not as honorable and distinguished, but I will do my best to share what Globe has done, at least in our transition to renewable energy. My name is Raymond, as mentioned. Of course, she also mentioned I'm from La Salle or came from La Salle. I am the head of risk and property management. Today, I'll present the view from the private sector, specifically sharing Globe's ongoing strategies that help build more livable and intelligent cities here in the country through renewable energy, energy efficiency, IoT, or the Internet of Things, and connectivity. This is actually very timely because, as you might have read, our own CEO, Carl Cruz, just recently was in Japan recently, signing a memorandum of understanding in Japan for international partners in how we look at intelligent cities of our central business districts. In this presentation, I will give a brief background on Globe, our overall net zero journey, our strategies, our progress, and of course, we'll share detailed and specific initiatives such as renewable energy, electric mobility, and more energy efficient or EE technologies. Now, first off, I guess I need to tell you more about Globe, just in case you don't know who Globe is. Now, we are arguably the leading, no, not arguably, we are the leading mobile telco in the Philippines. We cater to the telco and technology needs of consumers and businesses. This cuts across a suite of products and services. You have your mobile, broadband, internet, and managed services. It may sound a bit corny, but I am proud of Globe's vision of a Philippines where families' dreams come true, businesses flourish, and the Philippines as a nation is admired globally. We aim to contribute to this by uplifting the lives of Filipinos every day through our solutions, our products, and services. But how do we do this, really? Mainly by providing connectivity services to our approximately 67.9 million customers. This also includes providing connectivity to local and city government customers. Whether it's Makati, it's San Juan, it's Quezon City. This also is a clear principle that digital connectivity is the backbone for creating more intelligent cities in the Philippines. To quote our CEO, Carl, in the aforementioned visit in Japan, Globe is excited to showcase its consistent and reliable network to transform cities, ensuring that every Filipino has access to the tools, opportunities, and digital experiences they need to keep moving forward in an increasingly connected world. In Globe, we are committed to reduce our impact on the environment, particularly GHG, greenhouse gas emissions, as evidenced by our net zero targets. You may know this, but Globe is actually the very first publicly listed company in the Philippines to have these targets validated by SBTI, or Science Based Targets Initiative. We have also been an active member of the United Nations Global Compact, which is the largest corporate sustainability initiative. Now, the company's contributions have helped us gain recognition as being the only Philippine telco and one of the only 2 Philippine companies named in the list of the world's sustainable companies by Time and Statista in 2025. but I've been saying the only and the first, right? So let's get down to what we're doing. We see sustainability as fulfilling our purpose in action. Everything we do aligns with creating a globe of good. Our ESG practices are deeply tied um, to global frameworks such as TCFD, Task Force on Climate-Related and Financial Disclosure. We have the Race to Zero movement, and of course, addressing the 10 specific UN Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. But for this afternoon, we will share SDG 11 and SDG 13 and our contribution to those, specifically sustainable cities and climate action. Now, our net zero journey began really 2 decades ago. And Yen already mentioned I'm 3 decades in Globe because she had to say that. But in 2008, we started our GHG emissions accounting. So that was actually the kickoff, right? Because you have to be able to measure whichever program that you want to launch. And we introduced green network solutions to reduce these emissions. After that, we began shifting our facilities to renewable energy sourcing. We started out in BGC, our headquarters, the Globe Tower, in 2019. We transitioned then to 100% RE. And of course, we partnered with ACEN Res. Of course, I have to mention because, my friends from ACEN Res and ACEN are here. And by 2024, our Scope 1, 2, and 3 net zero targets were officially validated by what we mentioned earlier, the SBTI, which is very critical to us because that's how we can measure and monitor our targets. Now, later on, I'll discuss how we operationalize these commitments for energy efficiency, and renewable energy. But beyond these, we actually have also sourced 245 electric and hybrid electric vehicles for our company fleet, including our employee car plans, our exec plans, and company shuttles as of the end of last year. For our enterprise solutions, Globe also is providing IoT solutions for more efficient fleet management. I'm sure we have our friends from B2B who can actually share that with you. This would also help in improving the idea of livable cities by lessening tailpipe emissions and that contribute to air pollution. Now, in order to fulfill our commitment to the 1.5 degrees Celsius global warming, this was the limit set in the Paris Agreement. First off, we have to continue decarbonizing our operations. This already includes sourcing electricity from RE, or renewable sources or partners. Secondly, we operationalize climate risk resilience. So what does that mean? We strengthen our network infra to withstand stronger typhoons and floods. We all know we're now in an El Nino season. We expect intensified typhoons in the next couple of months to end of the year. And this is something that's very critical, important to us as an organization that has to be up during an emergency because of communications. And thirdly, we engage our value chain partners regarding their sustainability credentials. Do we partner with those who have a high ESG score or are actually also pursuing renewable energy? In 2025, and here are some of the solutions that we've done, we continue to invest in creating a greener network. We actually had 20,800 new deployments of more efficient technologies. So what does this mean? These are energy efficiency upgrades for our equipment to be a little bit more energy saving or a bit more smarter in terms of how they consume energy. And we actually generated 510 million in energy savings for the company. It's actually hard to say also, 510 million. That's a large number. Key innovations adopted, including high consumption in operations, right? We have cooling and HVAC related improvements, such as using AI to have efficiently adapt the use of energy for cooling large facilities. Our AI is also being used in our network assets by calibrating energy consumption based on network demand. This actually reduced energy by 6.5%. The innovative uses of AI are incredibly exciting, regardless of the moral conversation of how AI is used, because these serve as examples that could be expanded to build a more intelligent city, or a lot more of our intelligent cities. For example, by proving that AI can dynamically calibrate energy based on real-time demand in our network, we can explore using such technology at scale by building more energy efficient and intelligent grids, maybe IoT enabled smart metering that was mentioned earlier in Honorable Mayor's talk, and battery energy storage systems. These would enable more reliable supply of renewable energy to our municipalities and cities by effectively managing the variability or the fluctuation of RE supply. Other solutions, of course, are retiring legacy equipment, the old equipment. These actually consume a lot of energy. And installing more efficient, more modern, upgraded, and safer batteries. An example would be lead-acid batteries, changing them into lithium-ion or sodium-nickel chemistries. Lastly, as data centers are being mentioned more and more because of the demand of AI, we have been improving our power usage effectiveness, or as you all know, PUE, from an average of 1.72 in 2024 to about 1.64 in 2025. Here we have our journey in adopting RE so far. We scaled sourcing from RE sources required a certain level of challenge during that time that we started, because there are market shifts, especially even supply at the time we started wasn't really that prominent yet. In terms of how we looked at it or implemented it, we gradually cut it across core sites and secondary sites to have it more of as a BAU implementation of how we source renewable energy. For instance, we were able to reduce the risks related to fuel cost recovery adjustment due to high coal prices back in 2022 to 2023 during the Ukraine-Russia war. And as you might have guessed, right now in the current crisis, this has helped us improve our resilience to the fuel-related risks that we are encountering this year. We have also taken advantage of the continued lowering of thresholds for our COA, JOP, and the Retail Aggregation Program, or the RAP. Ms. Liza, we are very thankful for this initiative because we can actually implement across the board on all of our sites how we can push renewable energy. Lastly, last year, we became the first telco in the Philippines to switch cell sites to renewable energy through RAP. This has enabled us to scale up the RE transition to reach even more sites, even the secondary sites, the cell sites which actually run on 12 kilowatts or 25 kilowatts if we aggregate them or we cluster them. We also became the first telco to actually power our cell sites with renewable energy. Ito na naman ako sa mga firsts. No? This has enabled us to scale up the RE transition even more. We actually transitioned around 350 sites to RE through power purchase agreements and a bit of implementation also for on-site solar PV installations. The progress on RE adoption as well as validation of our GHG emissions by the SBTi all contribute to our building of a green network, which help make Globe a reliable, future-proof partner for cities and municipalities aiming to meet their own sustainability goals and supports the new Government Procurement Act, or the Republic Act of 2009, which institutionalizes environmental sustainability and green public procurement. Now, off to my bragging rights slide. I call this the bragging rights slide because of the certifications. But these initiatives that we have to reduce GHG emissions and the transition to RE have helped us gain numerous ESG recognitions. In January, we got the first A- score on climate from CDP. We have an A-list listing for CDP supplier engagement, and we have 5 golden arrows for corporate governance. But more than the achievements, the company remains focused on our contribution to the Philippine government's target. It was mentioned earlier on by Ms. Liza, 35% of the power generation mix from RE by 2030 and 50% by 2040. That is the reason why we continue to partner with our friends from ACEN, ACEN Res, even First Gen Empower, because we want to make sure that we can also contribute to that national goal. Through these efforts, we also aim to help the country meet its commitment of more than 70% projected emissions reduction and avoidance in the period of 2020 to 2030. That's just about 4 years left, right? But this is part of the nationally determined contribution, or NDC, aligned with the Paris Agreement. So with that, thank you very much. We truly appreciate your time and allowing me to share not only Globe's renewable energy initiative, but also in energy efficiency, the IoT offerings, our electric mobility initiatives, and how we can help build more intelligent and livable cities. I hope that we can explore being your partner to help make this a reality all across the country, all across the Philippines. I also invite you to check our recently published annual integrated report. You can use the QR code here to access the document or look for it in the Globe website. You can actually also check out the social media page of our CEO, Carl Cruz, because we always have something Globe of good to share. Just don't check out my LinkedIn page because that's relatively boring. Thank you very much. We hope you have a good afternoon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Raymond. So Globe went, I just want to stress that Globe went from 2 renewable powered sites in 2019 to more than 350 by the end of last year. And they did it by tying decarbonization to executive pay and to an internal price on carbon. That is why their progress outpaced their own targets. So for our LGUs, I guess our key takeaway is simple. What gets measured and rewarded gets done, and accountability is what turns a commitment into a result. So earlier, Quezon City with Mayor Joyce showed us what is possible. Now let's look at another city. Our next speaker comes from a highly urbanized city that has made deliberate, practical choices to cut its energy use and build sustainability into the way it runs. His credentials really do speak for themselves. He is a licensed civil engineer and the #1 placer in the Master Plumber Licensure Examination. Am I correct? Okay. He holds both his master's and doctorate degrees in international development engineering from the Tokyo Institute of Technology, where he earned honorable mention during the master's studies. He has advised the Senate of the Philippines as a consultant, and today he serves as the city engineer of Makati. Please join me in welcoming engineer William Hong. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. And to the partners from industry, to our partners also from the national agency and government sector, to our LGUs. I wish Mayor Joy was still here. I wanted to commend her energy. I felt it was very inspiring. Today, it is my greatest pleasure to represent Makati, to share our short story and a very simple strategy in our journey to 100% renewable energy. When you say sustainability and renewable energy, you rarely get an adjective of short story and simple strategy. It's usually a very complex, drawn out effort, years in the making. But luckily, Makati does have a short story and simple strategy in achieving this goal. I'll take you 2 months ago, March 2026, where Makati was awarded as the first LGU in the Philippines to utilize or champion 100% renewable energy. I guess that's why we got invited here today, because we've been asked so many questions how we got there. And again, our story is short, our strategy is simple. And let me tell you why or how. Our journey started 1 year ago. It was around May, election period, and then Senator Mayor Nancy Binay was already elected as the mayor. But prior to holding her office, she called me and invited me to her Senate office. And we had a conversation, and it went like this. Engineer, I heard we can select our energy supplier. Yes, ma'am. If it is within the threshold, I believe we can. Oh, good. Engineer, I heard we can also choose renewable energy for that matter. Yes, ma'am. I also heard that there's a policy where, or recently developed policy where we can now aggregate the smaller facilities into one account. And so we can bring everything together and choose our energy supplier and choose renewable energy at that. Yes, ma'am. We can, apparently. And so she said, okay. So when we set foot in Makati, I want you to explore so that Makati will be 100% renewable energy. And I could not think of a simpler and better way to answer her other than, yes, ma'am. So this is our Makati's yes, ma'am strategy to renewable energy. 100% renewable energy. The strategy starts with the yes, saying yes to renewable. It starts with yearning. The decision actually has to come from the top. The vision crafting is there. A lot of people recently, when we achieved this milestone, keep asking, what's your secret, engineer? How did Makati do it? And actually, this is the first time I will reveal our secret. Uh, we have ACEN. You know ACEN? No. Yeah, you don't know. ACEN, we have a senator that believes we can do it. That is our secret. We have a senator that believes the programs that DOE has can transform the Philippines how it should. And of course, we have ACEN as a partner. Of course, we have to commend them. Thank you for that. But yes, yearning has to start from the top. The vision has to be crafted. From there, you evaluate. Evaluate what you have. Evaluate your team, your needs as a community. My impression here is we're sharing information on how other LGUs and organizations can actually adopt. And so evaluation is important because not every LGU is the same. Not every organization is the same. Your needs are different. So you have to evaluate. And from there, you strategize. You consider the industry, technologies, and policies that are there. So when we came in Makati, we already had local energy codes and plans. No? We had greenhouse gas reduction targets by 2030, 2050. We had commitments to national and global level establishments as well. But here are the key policies that really broke the barrier or pushed this forward. And in this case, I will not say that this is a short story. We believe that this journey started 25 years back when EPIRA actually came into play in 2001. The Electric Power Industry Reform Act. So this effectively unbundled our industry sector into generation, transmission, and distribution. Why that was important? It's because now private sector can actually come into play, contribute better, and it gave customers the choice of choosing partners that are effective. No? Then came Renewable Energy Act 2008. This, of course, developed renewable energy in the Philippines, allowed private sector to contribute more, and the Green Energy Option Program paved the way to allowing end users to choose green energy or renewable energy. All of these are important actually, but the breakthrough really came recently. One is the competition retail electricity market, or the CREM as they know it, and lowering the threshold from 500 to 100 kilowatts as a contestable market also allowed a lot of facilities to avail of the program. But then, as mentioned by the mayor when she was crafting her ideas, the retail aggregation program really allowed us to bring everything together. Because now, every barangay hall, for example, every basketball court, every school, every street light can be brought together because of the RAP program and into one account with a renewable energy partner. So after saying yes, of course, you have to work. And the MAM part of our strategy is really more action-based. The first part of that is to meet your stakeholders. In the first month of sitting in her after assuming office, in this picture here, we met Meralco all within a month. And we started talking about our needs, our thoughts, and they were able to relay to us our options and their support as well. We were also able to meet other stakeholders, ACEN included, to see and invite possible proposals that would meet our goals. And so next is acceptance of these proposals that meet your goals. There are going to be several proposals. Some install solar, some this and that. But in this case, we were looking for the 100%. And not just 100%, 100% renewable energy. So when you meet or accept these proposals, you begin aligning to your goals. So later I'll explain a bit of the intricacies in our proposal, but basically we have to align and then we just simply make it happen. Making it happen means to procure it the right way. Making it happen, it means to prepare the technical requirements so that you can successfully switch to renewable energy. So this is our Yes Ma'am strategy. And this slide outlines the key provisions to our agreement that everybody's been asking about now. And this is quite simply all you need to know in terms of applying for what Makati has done. First, it's an unsolicited offer with bid matching. There has to be a good understanding, thank you, that there's a new procurement law, and that's RA 12009. And it allows for this provision to receive unsolicited proposals, and to make it competitive, it has to be bid matched. The other key provision is that we are requiring RS to provide 100% renewable energy and with a discounted price. So our multi-year supply agreement is projecting to save Makati more than 300 million through the lifetime of the contract or agreement. And on top of that, we are also going to receive electric vehicle charging stations that will be installed. Now, why is this important? In another dimension, we're also looking at transportation. The only way you can actually bring renewable energy to your constituents, or another way to do that, is actually through transportation. And imagine now that all EVs will be charging and they're also renewable. So this is also a key feature in this agreement. Now you have not only for power, but for mobility as well. So all in all, more than 150 city facilities will be covered with this program at a combined 10 megawatts renewable load and 300,000 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions will have been prevented through our multi-year program. So again, this story is quite short, and our strategy was fairly simple. And this coming July 1, would have been 365 days from the first day that Mayor Nancy assumed office in Makati. And this would also be the first switching date for ACEN and Makati renewable energy contract. And we're very happy to invite everyone here and perhaps watching. If you're interested, welcome to Makati. Thank you po.
Yes, sir. No, it's nice to know that Makati became the first local government in the country to run on 100% RE. This is what's remarkable, because Makati did it without building a single power plant. And instead, they signed one intelligent procurement contract covering more than 150 city facilities with an estimated 300 million pesos in savings over 9 years. Wow. The message for every mayor and planner in the room is simple. You do not need to own a power plant to become renewable. You need the right contract, which Makati did. Congratulations, sir. If anything sparks a question for you, please put your questions to the Zoom Q&A box or the Facebook Live for our on-site participants. And for those who are here, we'll take your questions later during the panel discussion. From Makati, we head to San Juan, where the conversation around sustainability is being shaped by local governance, community resilience, and a very practical kind of action. Our next speaker has built a distinguished career across public service communications and community development. Today, he heads the City Tourism and Cultural Affairs Office of San Juan, where he oversees tourism and cultural programs, represents the city in forums like this one, and helps shape policy and puts it into practice. He also played a vital role during the pandemic, serving on both the San Juan City Coronavirus Task Force and the Vaccine Task Force. And before his career in government, he spent more than 14 years as an award-winning producer at GMA Network, Artistahin. And he brings that same instinct for storytelling and public affairs, the way his city governs. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Brian Geli.
Thanks, Yanni. Excuse me, I'm feeling a bit under the weather, but hopefully, it's a lot of pressure. We're here in Makati and Quezon City. We love both cities, and we are trying to follow your footsteps. So here goes our plan. Anyway, so hopefully with San Juan City, we'll be able to do your 100% energy, renewable energy and efficient energy by 2030, from energy efficiency to energy transition. So first, why do we want to move to renewables? First, because of energy security, energy affordability, of course, environmental sustainability, and climate resilience. These are the things that direct us to move into renewable energy. So already the DOE discussed this, and of course Makati. So let's jump to. I know we are not yet 100% like Quezon City and Makati. We're at 92.6% of the rating given by the DOE for its energy audit rating. But that 92.6% rating has already saved us 20.6% of energy cost compared to last year's electricity bill. We saved 20.6%. Based lang doon sa DOE's directive and the MC 114. So we were able to save that much with a 4-day work week and our 7 to 4 work day. So this is basically what we do at every 4 p.m. Somebody at the end of our work day, somebody goes around and asks everyone to turn off all lights, air conditioning before that at around 3 or 2, and everything else must follow. And of course, no more use of our vehicles after 4 p.m. So that's why that's how we try to save energy as much as possible. Oh, correction, it's 20.7% savings. So again, we're also moving to renewable energy. Why not massive solar deployment? 2019, we already started discussing with some solar panel providers on how we could move from the traditional or the to renewable energy, and we were supposed to do rooftop installations. However, we have limited rooftop area, and of course, the high maintenance cost, the exposure to typhoons and extreme weather, and higher life cycle replacement costs. So it was not practical for us to do rooftop installations. Instead, we are going from the QC. We were trying to look at the QC model. We shifted to the Makati model. So we are also following the footsteps of Makati on this. And instead, we are going to purchase renewable energy through the existing grid. But we are going to buy it from renewable source, and then through the NGCP, Meralco, and then to our facilities. We hope to consolidate everything. We, of course, have the City Hall, our San Juan Medical Center, and then we have other, about 4 or 5 other city-owned and controlled facilities, plus the 21 barangay halls, and the 13 public schools. So everything, we hope to consolidate everything so that we can just purchase our energy source renewables. At the moment, unsolicited proposal has already been accepted. We received it yesterday. So fairly recent, but we hope to leapfrog, because we hope to transition city government facilities to electricity sourced from renewable energy providers while continuing to utilize existing distribution infrastructure. And like I said, we hope to save about further 20 to 30% more due to this shift. And for sustainable transport, Mayor Francis Zamora has already directed us. All future government vehicle purchases shall be hybrid or fully electric. Unfortunately, we recently, I think last year and a couple of years ago, we just purchased vehicles. So moving forward, new purchases will be hybrid or electric. That's why we're trying to look for suppliers who can supply us with EV ambulances, because that's the next purchase we plan to do. So ambulances and then other important transportation and vehicles. So our objective is to gradually decarbonize the city's vehicle fleet. We've already bought 4 EV tour vehicles. Unfortunately, there are some hiccups. apparently, we have to register our vehicles to the LTO, and the supplier has to register their company to the LTO. So we're doing that, but we already have the vehicles, and we're ready. In fact, we're already using them LTO. Hi. And then we plan to purchase, we actually have another e-bus on the way. Um, that e-bus has already been bidded out. We're waiting for delivery. And so we hope to replace our old bus with an e-bus. Hopefully they'll be able to deliver soon. So transportation-wise, we also plan to shift to clean energy. And then we have the San Juan E-Trike Tourism and Sustainable Mobility Ordinance of 2026. It has already been filed, and we hope to incentivize transition from gasoline-powered tricycles to electric tricycles, tie up with, because I'm with the tourism office, tied up with our sustainable tourism programs by having our tricycle drivers trained as tour guides. So this would incentivize the tricycle drivers and the operators. Should you replace your old gasoline-powered tricycles with e-trikes, we will train your drivers to be tour guides so that they can also operate as tour operators in San Juan City for added income to our tricycle drivers. So it's in the pipeline, and hopefully we get to pass this within the year. Of course, we are a bit stuck with the discussion on how do we, which year to fully shift to e-trikes, either 2030 or 2035. Of course, we are in talks with our tricycle operators on how to transition without affecting their livelihood. And hopefully we get to iron that soon. With the help of the private sector, of course. That's why I'm here, because should the private sector help us with providing our todas with e-trikes, it'd be very helpful to convince them much easier, because we have that with our JODA, the jeepney operators. We were actually the first, one of the first to have our JODA transform into a cooperative. And during the Euro 4 transition, we were one of the first to transition to Euro 4. And now that the government has the new transition program to EVs for our jeepneys, our JODA is also one of the first to apply. It's actually easier for your TODAs and JODAs to transition into these new EV models when they're in a cooperative. So hopefully we get our TODAs to also convert into a cooperative like our JODA in San Juan. The benefits, of course, would for early incentives, early adopters would be tourism accreditation, like I said, tour guide training. In fact, we've already started training our tricycle drivers. Some are already ready to serve as tour guides. And we've also provided them with tour guide kits and priority participation in the city tourism programs. San Juan City is very small, so a tricycle driver can bring tourists around San Juan City in half a day, because we're only 5.95 square kilometers. So hopefully the outcome would be cleaner transportation and livelihood generation for our TODAs and JODAs. And tourism as a driver of sustainability, me as a tourism officer, we've adopted a tourism code that integrates sustainable tourism principles. So part of our tourism code is a call for environmental sustainability, a reduction of waste generation, responsible resource use, renewable energy use in tourism activities, and eco-friendly transportation options. These are all outlined and spelled out in our tourism code, which we call the San Juan City Inclusive and Sustainable Tourism Code. It was passed 2025. We actually also have a green building code, which was passed in 2023. But the tourism code directs all our tourism establishments to shift to sustainable energy soon. And the city will also be issuing energy sustainable certificates for our tourism establishments that they can use in promotion, of course, of their establishments. And our green tourism initiatives, we have the DIY bike trails, the 4 newly procured EVs, the procurement of electric tour bus, and the future hop-on, hop-off EV. I think Makati had that hop-on, hop-off. When the DOT approached us for this, we demanded that they operate an EV in San Juan City instead of the gas-powered. And they're doing that. They're already purchasing an e-bus also, which they will operate in San Juan City for their hop-on and hop-off. And so we have the green also. We were able to ask 40 million from the DBM, and we're building solar-powered waiting sheds, bird watching platform, and a linear park. Believe it or not, San Juan City has an area which has been declared a bird sanctuary. So we were able to do that with a program with Greenpeace. We had a waste audit. And while they were there, they noticed that one area of San Juan in Addition Hills with a lot of trees had a lot of migratory birds. And so the barangay had a group of bird watchers validate that. And when they were able to validate that, they declared it a bird sanctuary. And then we asked the DBM to fund it, fund our bird watching platform and another linear park. So all these newly constructed areas are solar powered. And then we're close to completion, as you can see. And then we're building a linear park with fruit-bearing trees. There has to be fruit-bearing trees, vegetable garden, urban greening, and an underground rainwater cistern, which can store about 500 cubic meters. Not that much, but it's a start. It's a good start. And so we hope to transform flood-prone and utilize spaces into productive green infrastructure. And hopefully also the private sector will be able to help us with this. Although we have very limited land area free for these kinds of projects in San Juan, but whatever remaining land we have, we will be happy to accept help from the private sector. So the San Juan City Tourism Code promotes water conservation and encourages tourism-related establishments to establish rainwater catchment systems. It's part of our tourism code. And we have a rain catchment contest, which we'll be awarding winners this June 17. We also have a central-led awareness campaign and sustainable tourism initiatives. So energy transition and water sustainability go in hand in San Juan City. So we also have the Pasulong Shed. It's solar and kinetic powered. This is in partnership with Shell. As you can see, we love to partner. Whenever it's free, come to San Juan. You're very welcome. We'll work with you. So this is free. Shell is building it for us. And so our model is for energy efficiency, renewable energy, green infrastructure, and sustainable tourism for a more livable San Juan. So Mayor Zamora said, our goal is not merely to consume renewable energy. Our goal is to build a city where sustainability is embedded in our psyche, how we work, travel, build, and live. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. We hope that you reach your goals into transitioning to renewable energy. And it's nice to know that you're adopting energy efficiency into your tourism activities. That's another strategy for our LGUs. And now we're into our final speaker and a fitting one to close on. He's a clean energy entrepreneur with a global outlook and a deep commitment to the Philippines. He is the president of WEnergy, Power Filipinas, and Archipelago Renewables. He's also head of business development for WEnergy Global, a company at the forefront of delivering energy that is clean, reliable, and affordable. He holds degrees in business, international relations, and creative writing from Georgetown, Cambridge, and Oxford. Ew. Joining us online, let us welcome Mr. Quintin Pastrana.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Let me just share the presentation so I can cap off this presentation and segue into the panel. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to make this set of a presentation more of a forward-looking thing because we already have a slew of best practices from the previous speakers in leading key cities. So what I want to focus on is on the next wave of cities. You still have around 140, over 140 more cities around the country, and the next wave that want to become cities, the 1,490 plus municipalities and the 42,000 barangays who have this ambition also to become as modernized and sustainable as the Quezon City, San Juans, and the Makatis of the world. So what I want to share with you is really more of a framework and an actual application of what we're doing around the country for these other local governments and communities. So the ideal situation really is not a one-size-fits-all setup wherein you have intelligent transport, you have solar on rooftops, you have battery systems, in certain cities, like for example, where this is modeled on, like Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, you also have a different set and portfolio of renewable energy sources like wind. You have biomass. You've got lead buildings. You've got e-vehicles. And the ideal thing is you want enough redundancy built into the system just in case there's a force majeure or there's a black swan event that happens that we've seen around the world recently, especially when it comes to disruptions for climate change or geohazards. What's guided us as a company in terms of performing our ethos and advancing these renewable energy last mile delivery solutions is the 4D model, basically. Decarbonization is obviously something that people are doing right now. The idea that we want to decentralize as well because we are an archipelagic region and country. Digitalization using the Internet of Things, as our friends from Globe have been doing, and looking at various modes of deregulation to make sure that the regulatory framework and the rules of the road are more private sector friendly, and at the same time foster public-private partnerships. The critical nature of this is more highlighted now because it happens to be we are in a critical location. You know, we are in the Asia Pacific where more than half of the world lives. It's also where the biggest economic juggernaut in terms of economic activity and growth is. And if you look at the right side, if we just zero in on Southeast Asia, that growth also comes at a cost, the double-edged sword and the trade-off of having large demand outstripping supply. And what we're seeing right now is, you know, over a $300 billion deficit in terms of looking at energy trade because we don't produce as much as we consume. And that is certainly the case in the Philippines more than Indonesia, where we are totally a net importer of fossil fuel. And with this region getting more than 80% of its oil and gas from the Gulf states, this becomes a high risk as well, especially now. You zero in the Philippines as well. Not everybody is blessed to be in the NCR. You have areas in the Philippines where on the left side, you're seeing different forms and compliances of rural electrification, wherein some are as high as 99%. But then our friends and brothers and sisters from Mindanao are down at 43%. You look at Soxargen, you know, where the recent earthquake happened, we're still not even close to 90%. And you're seeing the rest in Eastern Visayas also following the same suit. So there's an inequality there that you can see. I borrowed a map of the Philippines at night from a cartographer friend of mine, and you see a lot of the inequality there as well in terms of where energy should be and where it's not. You can barely trace the archipelago when you look at the nighttime needs of the Philippines. And typically, in an advanced country, you'd like to see more of the spread of energy from the NCR, in this case, towards the areas of Palawan, where we're at, Eastern Visayas, which is not so clear, and the BARM area. So that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where a lot of the work needs to be done. And that's where hopefully we can join together to work on this for the next level cities and municipalities. Now, the solution is not a one-size-fits-all solution, as I mentioned. In the Philippines, what we've done is we've pioneered in Palawan, in Puerto Princesa, which is, again, a leading city also, and a chartered city in Palawan, to do the unserved and underserved areas, in this case in Sabang or Barangay Kabayugan, which hosts the UNESCO underground river. We've been able to pilot since 2019 a 1.4 megawatt solar, 1.2 megawatt diesel or biodiesel adaptive set of generators with a 2.4 megawatt hour battery system that's lithium ion. And using IoT, we're able to monitor the synchronization of all this power to make sure that the power becomes 24/7 and reaches out to all these constituents we have in one barangay that helps the city do its needs, especially in light of the fact that this is a large city, remote areas. It's not helpful to have a centralized grid. It's good to have a decentralized grid all throughout. The nice thing about this setup is you're integrating generation, transmission, and distribution. So you see a lot here of the distribution infrastructure, the step-down transformers, the power lines, and at the end of the day, it is helping light 24/7 these communities which did not have any electricity and use generators, very expensive generators and very unreliable generators before 2019. And if you think about the setup, well, this looks like a very small system. It's also a very replicable system that we can advance and scale up in other parts of the country. And if you think about what we have here in terms of the SDGs, we were able to get data from the LGU and the barangay level that show on the mortality rate, we've actually reduced it. We've actually helped reduce, which is the conditions of a 24/7 grid allows you to help with these indicators across the SDGs. Mortality rate went down over 70%. Business registration over tripled. And at the end of the day, you're looking at also women running 70% of these registered businesses. Crime incident went down over 80%. And even the education aptitude passing rate, well, that is a lag effect, a lagging indicator. It's gone up by 10% over the last 5 years alone. So we're looking at those indicators as measuring the effects of the SDGs in an area where you're providing electricity, especially for those who don't need it. I'll just go through this slide briefly. The magic of having 0 to 8 hours, to 8 to 24 hours, brings in a whole slew of economic activity. Income has grown up by 70%. That's been validated by the local government. The social impact and results have been over 80% satisfaction. Even on the cooking sources in these different areas, you're looking already at people shifting away from charcoal or wood into gas and electric cookers. And internet penetration has gone up to 96%. So you can have more of the globes of the world come into these areas and be able to put an IoT-based economy. That experience led us to one of the regulations that actually came up in 2020, but now has an updated implementing rules and regulation, which is the Microgrid Systems Act. And the DOE has mentioned everything from JOP to the Renewable Energy Act. The local governments have mentioned the RE Act and also the RES systems that they've been able to sign with. But these are for more the other cities that really have unserved and underserved areas. What we have from the Department of Energy is around over 2 million households. That was 2.5 to 3 million Filipino households that are still unserved and underserved. And at the end of the day, if you aggregate that roughly belongs to, I'd say, a $7 billion or 430 billion peso market and investment ask that the private sector can come in. Now, thankfully, the government, and this is when the law was passed, thankfully, we had Senator Win Gatchalian, who was the energy chair at that time and now is the Senate president. I mean, that leadership has actually allowed us to get a law that all developers can come into and get certificates of energy project of national significance, the CEP&S, that allows these projects to go fast track because there's a lot of regulatory hurdles that even a small power plant that with a distribution utility has to go through. And at least we're very grateful that this law is there. It allows you now to advance and scale up these renewable energy projects at the last mile delivery level. This has been shown in various degrees, but look, the rising tide of energy is really palpable. We're seeing a lot of the other companies coming in, especially the large conglomerates, and that's really driving what we're seeing right now, a doubling between 2025 and 2034. In 10 years, you're looking at 41 trillion terawatt hours of energy equitably divided between solar, wind, and bioenergy and hydro. But where I think the rubber really meets the road is the deficit of what we need to do in the local level called the renewable portfolio standards. As many of you know, within the archipelago, a lot of the islands are still powered by mostly diesel, and therefore RPS compliance is sometimes at a standstill. In fact, if you look at it, there is a big delta in terms of looking at the shortfall for renewable portfolio standards. That to us is a challenge, but it's also a wonderful opportunity because we look at this opportunity and say, great, there's an opportunity for the private sector, not just the large conglomerates, but also mid-sized firms like ourselves to basically fill up this delta in terms of the next few years wherein there will be either competitive selection processes, JAPs, or embedded generation rules where you can come to a distribution utility and submit an unsolicited proposal, which doesn't need to go through a CSP, because this is mandated for them to have at least 30% of their grid, basically by 2040, powered by renewable energy. So we feel that this backlog is an opportunity, and that's something that your fellow counterparts in the local governments that are not yet charter cities or modernized cities that need a lot more help in terms of getting their renewable energy in for compliance, but also to get the SDGs in those unserved and underserved areas. Scaling up from what we've done in Sabang, we now have been awarded 24 microgrids around the Philippines. This is primarily in Palawan, where we have around 20, and then 2 of them are in northern Cebu, in the Bantayan area, and in the Polillo Island group. So what we have really in total is not just power generated, but also over 200 kilometers of smart power grid to be built. We've already groundbroken in many of the key areas of Palawan. This is going to be a hybrid between solar, diesel for backup for 24/7, and 7.6 megawatt hours of battery. In essence, these bits of infrastructure, which are available and deployable and scalable, are now going to power 11,600 households, and you multiply that with the number of residents, over 50,000 residents, empowering 400 SMEs, and with a $35 million investment. Not a bad, it won't break the bank to help our fellow Filipinos where they need it the most, but this is something where beyond the cities, the next level of tension has to be there in terms of getting where the last mile delivery is. This technology is hybrid. It's been there for quite some time now, but we're able to deploy them in a smaller set of packages. And effectively, we're looking at solar, inverters, batteries, and then diesel generators. And combined, you have a majority powered system with renewable energy that is 24/7, redundant, climate and geohazard proof, all deployed in different areas. And this is just the beginning. Plus the fact that if you look at the way things are structured, especially in the provinces, you're able to combine what we call agrivoltaics. You can actually combine idle land, grow by the lip of the panel on the higher side, which is around 2 meters high, vegetables that even enhance food security rather than detract from it. And that is happening right now in some of our sites where we're talking to DAR, and we're also talking to DAR beneficiaries to make sure that there is some food component, especially in these outlying areas. This is a picture of what we've had. We have Her Excellency Constance C. from the Embassy of Singapore, who joined us because our parent company is in Singapore. This is one of the sites in San Vicente that we've groundbroken last month. Construction is underway among the other sites. And effectively, these less than 1 hectare plots, plus around, let's say, 5 to 10 kilometers of grid lines, these are the wave of the future in terms of making sure that you have independent, redundant, and at the same time self-sufficient energy sources that can power the next level cities. Our understanding is the Department of Energy is also bidding out more sites. I think they have an initial package of 10 this year, but in the next 2 years, we're looking at close to 100 unserved and underserved areas with basically these cooperatives you see on the left side waving these areas for other investors to come in. And we're happy to be part of an ecosystem that needs more developers to do this so that your counterparts in the other local governments and communities can not just be livable cities, but champions for sustainable development. And just as a final slide, it really takes an ecosystem of developers and investors. In our case, if you look at our configuration, WEnergy Global is our company in Singapore. We have a joint venture called Clean Grid Partners with TEPCO, or that's Tokyo Electric Power Grid, the Meralco of Japan, and working with different subsidiaries to make sure that we are advancing not only the microgrids, but also the innovations like cold storage, electric transport. We're open to partner with you, as many of you, so we can do a full-on portfolio of services in these new microgrids, along with our banking partners, our academic partners, and our other advisors to make sure this happens. So with that, I just wanted to close and say thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to the panel, and more importantly, finding these one-stop shop best practices that we can develop together to make sure that livable cities, livable communities become more of a reality, especially in these critical years ahead. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Quintin. I'd just like to stress that in Sabang, your hybrid microgrid took households from as little as a few hours of power a day to a full 24. And with that came higher incomes, internet access, and even lower crimes.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. So that brings the most important part of our afternoon. We've heard from national policy, we've seen what cities are already doing on the ground, and we've learned what the private sector brings to the table. Now it's time to put all of those voices together in one room, and so let's welcome all our distinguished speakers back for our panel discussion. Ms. Liza Pangilinan of the Department of Energy, Engineer Mark Dale Diamond Peral, representing the Quezon City government. He is the City Engineer of Quezon City, who is sitting in for Mayor Joy Belmonte. We have Mr. Raymond Aguilar, Vice President, Head of Risk and Property Management of Globe Telecom. Engineer George William C. Hong, the City Engineer of Makati City. We have Mr. Brian Heli, Head City Tourism and Cultural Affairs Office of San Juan City. Mr. Quintin Pastrana, President and CEO, WEnergy Power Pilipinas. And joining us for this panel, thank you very much, Mr. Miguel De Jesus, Managing Director and Chief Operating Officer of ACEN Philippines, a seasoned energy leader whose career spans solar development, wind energy, retail electricity, and energy law, and who is also an alumnus of Harvard Business School's Advanced Management Program. So now we'd love to open the floor to you. This is your chance to speak directly with our experts to ask how cities and the private sector can move faster on renewable energy and what it really takes to get from good intentions to real projects on the ground. We'll take questions both ways. Here on site, you have your gooseneck microphones. Just press the button on the and we'll take your questions. Just raise your hand, and our moderator, our chairman, Mr. Bill Luz, will take your questions. And those who are on Zoom, joining us via Zoom and Facebook, please type in your questions in the chat box. Bill, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Annie, and thank you, first of all, to the panel for an interesting round of discussion. I think there's a lot of ideas here. I also have a lot of questions coming in from Zoom. Let me say that, first off, that I really like the examples and the from the different cities, I think, and from the corporates and from Department of Energy, because it shows different pathways forward for different LGUs for those who want to move in this transition to renewables. So thank you for that. Let me open up the floor for questions. Let me start first here in the room at ACEN Institute of Management. Any of you who may want to ask a question, we're going to open up the floor for questions, and then I will switch to the questions coming in from our Zoom listeners. So, anybody care to ask the first question? Okay, if not, let me start with is there a question here? Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Mr. Ace Esmeralda. Like a question for Globe. Raymond. Right. Yeah. Can Globe elaborate on how AI dynamically manages energy consumption across network infrastructures? And number two is that what safeguards are in place to ensure AI-driven optimization systems remain operational during cyber incidents or infrastructure disruptions like earthquakes or typhoons?
Thank you for that question. I had a feeling I would get the first question, really. But we understand that there's always a concern when you talk about AI. And I think that's why one of the things that we implemented in Globe is to make sure that we're able to adopt AI at a scale wherein we can try out its capabilities. not immediately saying, hey, we convert everything to AI. So an example, as you mentioned, this is actually partnering with our own suppliers, specifically Huawei, in actually deploying equipment that can, how do you say, that can detect and sense which of the servers or equipment or the telco equipment that would need more energy than others. Hence, you have less leakage of energy, and those equipment that are actually running less or maybe less traffic would not be allocated that energy. That's something that AI can bring us because you don't have to manually switch off equipment and rectifiers. That's one way of implementing AI. Uh, I think the understanding of what AI can bring would have to go down into to the different systems versus just saying, hey, can I use ChatGPT or can I use Claude? Because these other AIs are language models really, and that's on a prompt basis. And I know, and we all know that there has been some mileage on that discussion, but AI has been around for a lot longer than that. A lot of machine learning has been implemented in different equipments throughout maybe the last decade or so. So I think those are the things that we look at and which part of the operations can actually bring efficiencies through AI. Now, to your point in terms of how we make sure we have enough controls, I think one of the things that Globe really dedicates her resources with is our bid on cybersecurity. And just to share, in the past 2 years, we've already tagged that as our top risk because we know how cybersecurity actually cuts across a lot of the different functional areas in an organization. So we do resource also for cybersecurity. We actually linked our data privacy and cybersecurity controls to our AI, to the point that I'm sure you've heard, we actually have a chief AI officer to make sure that we can control and look at our adoption and ensure that it is at that pace wherein it does help us. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa, let me ask you a question on the green energy option program that's open to all, but there's some concern among smaller, low-income LGUs that the administrative compliance might be too complex for them. What are you doing at Department of Energy to make it simpler for the smaller LGUs? I'm talking here really the smaller municipalities, because so far we're seeing large cities move into it, but what about the small municipalities? How can you make it easier for them to get into it?
Yes, thank you, sir, for that question. So first, the Green Energy Option Program, we already enhanced it. So it will be available for all, especially those industries or LGUs that has limited consumption or minimal, or shall I say, not like Makati or San Juan or Quezon City, big cities. So we already lowered the threshold so they can already aggregate. Before it was 100 kilowatt, but now it's already 50 kilowatts. So that's a big enhancement. And also the processing of the GEO permit, we already enhance it. So from 22 working days, it is already 10 working days. And lastly, for the lower income municipalities or LGUs, they can now own the RECs, the Renewable Energy Certificate. Before, it will goes to distribution utilities, but with JOP, you can now earn the Renewable Energy Certificate, which you can trade or sell at the voluntary renewable energy market. Thank you, sir.
Yep, thank you. Miguel, thanks for joining us here in this panel. Just if you could give us maybe an idea, you work with Makati. It's very well publicized. It's the first to enter into this 100% renewables. Can you give us an idea of, let's say, how long did the whole arrangement take? The decision was made just a year ago. And when did ACEN enter into the picture, and how short was the turnaround? Just to give other cities out there an idea of how quickly this can be done.
Well, I think Engineer Hong spoke to it briefly, no. I think the first time that we were, can't remember the exact month or date, but shortly upon the commencement of Mayor Binay's administration, we already touched base just to understand what the need was, what the opportunity was. And from the time of that conversation, I can't tell you exactly how fast, but I can assure you it was extremely fast. We were able to put together an offer which we felt would be sufficiently compelling. And then that went through the procurement law as mandated. That naturally has a few periods that have to be respected, opportunities for other bidders to come in and provide alternatives. But I would say the entire process probably took us certainly somewhere between 3 and 4 months, maybe I would say, from beginning to end. That's my quick guess. See if I have anyone in the room which knows the answer, but that'd be roughly right, about 3 to 4 months from the time that we started through the processing and everything to come to a final decision and realize that we were going to go there. But I think one thing that's important to highlight is that part of the process that made it very, very easy for us and made it easy for the entire switching to happen was that the LGU knew very well the list of assets that it had. And as such, it could put together very, very clearly ito yung mga, kasi as the DOE has been speaking to, no, it's necessary to aggregate the capacity. So you have to add aggregation, right? You have to add. So if you add up one facility and another facility, until you meet the threshold. So that's what's necessary to be able to qualify. Obviously, Makati has a very, very large capacity, very easily meets the requirement. But nonetheless, when you go through the process of switching and identifying every single asset, getting the meter sorted out and all of that, that takes a lot more time, right? So I think as engineers speaking to it earlier, we'll be doing our first switching, meaning the actual asset being moved out of Meralco's system into the competitive space on the 1st of July to coincide with the anniversary, right? So I would say that this process, completion, like full completion, it's the 1st of July, that's 1 year, with a very, very aggressive local government keen on pushing things forward. So it can happen, the commercial agreement can happen very fast, but the actual switching process and getting everything done took roughly a year.
So what you're suggesting then is that what you're saying is that the first necessary step is, I guess, get an inventory of all the facilities that you want to switch over, right? And so you've got to get a lot of details there. So I think the lesson here for other LGUs and the other mayors is to start that process now before they even enter into any commercial discussion with suppliers, because that's going to be a necessity anyway. Right?
Bill, can I just add one thing? Sure. I think what's important, and to make it easy for the LGUs, is you'd love to be able to have a complete inventory of all of your assets, but start with the largest ones. Start with the City Hall. Start with, if you have all of your hospitals, like you have a few assets which will then meet the threshold, get those through first. Right. And then the smaller ones can follow, municipal health facilities and other things, because that will take much more time.
Right. Okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. It's interesting because what Migs is saying is not unlike how we at the private sector also looks at how we transition to renewable energy. It's a good point looking at the larger sites, because that's where you can zero in on what are those facilities or sites and locations you have that you can immediately transition, because you have to make that decision, because some of your sites may not be ready to transition if it's critical enough. I mean, coming from an industry where we have to be up 24/7, you have to balance how you transition to RE and making sure that that's available. And there are solutions. Partnering with ACEN Res gives you that opportunity to determine which of your larger sites can actually or can be ready to transition to RE. And not that I'm plugging our sister and brother in ACEN and ACEN Res, they are building to that capacity that can provide, I believe, both private sector and the public sector. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Engineer Peral, I just want to ask you, so you've got a slightly different strategy for Quezon City. You've started with rooftop solar. How many buildings does Quezon City own to begin with? I guess you must own quite a number, right?
Yes. I currently we have over 4,000 buildings across the city. Well, Quezon City is 25% of Metro Manila. And by the way, we are also reviewing ACEN's unsolicited proposal. Nauna lang po yung Makati kasi the demand of Quezon City government is roughly around 4 gigawatts of supply. So that is how we manage also our data. And at the same time, we have the inventory of assets that we already submitted to ACEN and other stakeholders as well.
So using your first step, which is the rooftop solar, how many percent of your buildings have you been able to transition to renewables?
It's quite a few because we started around more than 40. So that's in terms of capacity, we're on our 4 megawatt supply of solar. So if we cluster all the ones that we installed, we are actually it's like a small power plant already. So 25 schools with 3 hospitals and 5 institutional buildings. If we cluster it together, where we have a 4 megawatt solar power plant actually.
Oh, okay, quite big. Now, just for the 3 cities, aside from the buildings, I assume, say, all your streetlights are owned by the city. Is that the way it works, not the national government? So, I suppose you have a plan to run those streetlights through RE.
If I may answer for Quezon City. For Quezon City, for national roads, general rule is that it is owned by the national government. So that's how complex our government is. For street lights, for example, we have at least 2 national government agencies who are implementing infrastructure projects. We have DPWH and we also have MMDA. So ironically, MMDA is actually a procuring entity for solar lights along national roads. For Quezon City, for Quezon City government, we're at the point that we don't think that solar streetlights is efficient yet. Why? Because in terms of its reliability, for example, we initially planned the waiting sheds to be powered by solar solely. What happens is that at around 12 midnight, there's no lights. There are no lights because the harvest of solar energy throughout the day is not yet sufficient. That's why we converted it into hybrid. So we installed off-grid solar PV system, and then we also powered it up with normal Meralco supply. So that's how we ended up with a solution.
Brian, you're just sort of starting into this journey of RE in San Juan. You mentioned your one challenge is lack of rooftops. It's a small city. Second is the maintenance cost and the capital cost. So I assume that you are looking for a supplier instead to supply the energy, right?
We already have an unsolicited bid, and we're reviewing. We just received it yesterday, but it's also quite fast moving. I think initial approach was like a month ago, and now we have the bid, and hopefully we'll be able to review that soon and transition to renewables in the next couple of months. And by the way, our street lights are also owned by City and Meralco. So Meralco pays part of the our street lights, and we also believe they're not solar street lights aren't efficient at the moment. That's why we've maintained ours through our Meralco distribution. But hopefully soon with the shift to renewables, because it's quite expensive paying for the electricity bill for the streetlights, it eats up a lot of our budget.
Can I add
Yeah,
that?
please,
Just unless you have a question.
No, go ahead. I have a question. for you.
I wanted to add on that streetlights discussion because there needs to be a policy push for that. Currently, streetlights are generally with flat rates. So it's not based on meters. It's basically a number of streetlights, and then the city pays an equivalent amount, assuming that it's on for a certain number of hours. So the issue that came up during our switching process is that since it's not based on meters, then how can you switch, right? So currently, there is a discussion that we need to have with DOE, ERC, and who and on the policy level to unlock that flat rate issue with streetlights. We have proposals and ideas how to solve them, but we need to be placed in a platform where we could meaningfully discuss and arrive at a solution. This discussion will eventually come up as more cities try to switch to renewables, and the streetlight issue should be solved. And we hope this sort of exercise can push that further.
Can I add just something
Yeah.
there? The exciting thing about streetlights and switching them to a retail electricity supplier is the possibility later of combining EV charging at the street level. At the street level, right? And I think that's why I think this problem is a problem worth solving, right? Because then if we are able to do that, then we can provide competitive pricing for EV charging at the street, right? And that will be able to support not only private charging, but also all the public charging that we're trying to push forward.
Now, I think to enable a speedy transition, I think we need to address the issue of the administrative procedures, the permitting, the licensing. So let's start first with net metering. Is it difficult or is it easy? I mean, I've heard complaints that it's difficult to get the permits for this. What does DOE say? Is it difficult or is it easy? Is it being simplified for net metering?
Yes, thank you, sir. For now, we already have enhanced net metering applications with we already have a joint memorandum circular with DPWH, DILG, and DOE. So before it takes around 6 months, but for now it's already 22 22 days, 10 days for the LGUs permitting and 10 days for the distribution utilities. So it's not difficult now because our president directed the distribution utilities, the ERC, the DOE to fast track the implementation of the net metering program of the government.
Now I can see that there's an easy decision to make if you're a large city or you are a large corporate. What if we take a look at, let's say, micro, small, and medium scale enterprises? How can they be encouraged to get into the transition? Is it easy for them to make the switch, or they're too small? They're not aggregated. I mean, the cities and corporations can aggregate. MSMEs and residents, much more difficult to aggregate. How can it be made easier for them to get into renewables? Anybody?
San Juan is very small. We're only 5.95 square kilometers, and we own only a very limited number of schools, and I think it's actually very easy as long as you have the inventory of your properties. It's easy for LGs to transition and use the GEOP option.
Okay,
maybe just to put it in context, right? What does it mean to switch to renewable energy in the manner we've been discussing? What that means is to change the generation supplier under your electricity bill, right? And that person is no longer called your distribution utility. It's now called your retailer, right? So it's getting a retailer is fundamentally what it means. So how do you make it easy for people to get a retailer rather than buying from your franchise provider. And the law actually provides that, and this goes all the way back to the EPIRA, actually provides that the threshold is supposed to be 0 at some point. So all of these measures that we are taking, aggregation, 50 kilowatts, 100 kilowatts, these are all just steps in the sequence. So I think you're seeing very fast in the last few years that this threshold has been coming down very, very, very quickly. In fact, the green energy option, which was spearheaded by the DOE, was a way that they pushed the threshold, even if at that time the ERC had not yet lowered the threshold. Effectively, the DOE said, wait, okay, the ERC isn't prepared to lower the threshold. It's 500 kilowatts. We'll create a special opportunity around renewable energy and we'll break it down to 100. And then now you have aggregation and so forth. And actually, in aggregation, you're able to bring together one request we have. I don't know how much I can say yet about it. It's not yet completely public, but we're starting to see even if you're very, very small consumers, even if you don't have the same owner, if you can find the basis for gathering yourselves collectively, isang barangay, isang village, and you hit the threshold, pwede pa rin, right? So I think it becomes now a challenge of people trying to think about, okay, how can we become, a large enough group to hit that 50 kilowatt? So pwede na. So we have to be just creative about how to think about these groups, and if the impetus is coming from the customer, I think not only ourselves but everyone else in the generation sector will be keen to try to capture that potential market. So it's actually there. But the good news is that at some point we're hopeful that government will bring that threshold down to 0, and in which case everyone in this room can choose who their retail electricity supplier is, and doesn't need to be Makati or QC or who not.
That's what we're trying to do with our barangays because they pay separately from the city. And we have 21 barangays and we're trying to have them talk together and so they get an aggregated bill. So they can also transition to renewables.
Okay, no, that's great. If you were a small establishment or a resident, okay, and you wanted to install, there's been some complaints about sort of the procedures and the permits for installation, that they are too strict, the technical standards, and that there are sort of local permits to go through here, no? So how does it work? In cities, you have to issue a building permit of some sort for installation?
For solar or any electricity supply regulation, there are actually 2 offices involved. First would be the building official of the local government unit. And the second one is Meralco. The difficulty in solar is that before you can even go through the design, you must first get a yellow card from Meralco. And then you go to the city hall to get the electrical permit. So they're twofold. Now, for us, for Quezon City government, we actually had conversations with Meralco because we from government actually had a hard time. Why? Because for this solar PV systems, there are actually standards that are not yet fully clear. For example, when we put up our solar PVs with a maximum capacity of 100 kilowatt peak, Meralco then required us to do PQA testings. So what is that? Nobody knows that. So if we will translate this, for example, we in the government did 100 kilowatt peak, but if you are a resident, you're only installing 5 kilowatt peak of solar PV systems. So you will be confused. Why do we need to have these tests? Why do we need to have this regulation procedures? So we are in discussion with actually a professional organization, which is IIEE. I think it's important for us as a country to fix these engineering standards for purposes of regulations. Because if we do not fix the engineering standards, then it will be very confusing, not only for government, but also for the private sector and the utilities companies. again, this is very new to us. Or when we had this, I'm not saying that Meralco is giving us a hard time. Let me be clear. What I'm saying is this is entirely new. We started this in 2024. So when we rolled this up, but that actually we're really prepared to do a single system that is at least 500 kilowatt peak. But because ERC regulates or limits net metering to only 100, so we redesigned our system to have 100 kilowatt peak. When in the process of doing this implementation of this project, we are actually faced with other electrical engineering difficulties and regulations. So now, moving forward, we hope that the not only Meralco but also the electrical engineering community would help the entire industry in order for us to streamline. Because again, it's not only a difficulty on the part of government, no? Kasi the first impression is that mahirap kasi sa munisipyo, mahirap kasi yung building official. But if you actually work there, kawawa yung mga nasa sa gobyerno kasi their hands are tied. Their hands are tied insofar as what is the standard? How do we regulate? So again, it's a collective effort, I think.
Okay. So, but my understanding from the Office of the Building Official, under a standard building permit, already requires working with Meralco, correct?
Yes.
So it stands to reason that if you're talking of a solar installation, the same two offices who are used to working with each other should be able to come to an agreement of what the standard should be, right?
But to explain, the usual permitting regulation of any electrical works pertains to electricity going inside the house, right? What's the difference between solar net metering? They are regulating the electricity going outside. So what is now the requirement? Before, this is based on our personal experience. Before we set up the solar PVs in the Quezon City government, there is no such thing as filtering. They filter the electricity. So when we completed some of our works, now they are testing the quality of electricity going to the grid. Have you heard of that? Parang tubig, di ba? Filter. They're actually testing the quality of electricity from your solar PV system going to the grid. Have you heard of that? It is the first time I heard it 2 years ago. So there's such thing as they have to clean the electricity. So in that process, it's very confusing on the part of for example, if you're the one investing for solar PV, it's difficult because you have several suppliers, you have several equipment suppliers. Are you saying that this supplier generates a not filtered electricity? So that is the conversation we have with Meralco. Actually, we are debating with them because we still have 6 schools not energized because of a filter issue. So perhaps the other LGUs would warningan ko na kayo. Galingan nyo sa.
That's why we didn't opt for rooftop.
But so bottom line, who should be the sort of the decision maker on that particular policy that you're asking for? Who makes that decision? Is it Department of Energy? Is it some other agency? Is it DOE?
Yes, sir. It's in the RE law that you can only export up to 100 kilowatt. So we have to amend the RE Act because it's a distributed energy. It's only up to 100 kilowatt because this is really intended for consumer-based incentives. So you will just you can produce your own and sell back to the grid the excess electricity. So if you go beyond 100 kilowatt, you are already considered a generator. So you need to apply for a service contract. and you have to pass the legal, technical, and financial qualifications to become a qualified RE service contract holder.
Okay. So that really works against the larger
Yeah.
larger users and larger net meter customers in that sense, no? Okay.
Sorry, can I
yeah,
can
go
I
ahead.
answer just an alternative, right? Just maybe a technical alternative. And it's only something that's become, I think, more financially viable recently. So we've seen the price of batteries come down,
Mhm.
right? And so I think one opportunity, rather than insisting on the net metering, and there's also pricing is the value of net metering,
Yeah.
is if you install a battery,
And
you
use it yourself.
effectively store it,
Yeah.
and you can use it yourself. And
Use
remember,
it.
a vehicle is also a battery.
Battery, yeah.
So I think we're coming to a world where because I also wonder how valuable truly the net metering incentive is. The cities are not in the business of selling electricity. That's not their core.
Yeah.
What they're in the business of is using power.
Yeah.
Right. So if there's ways now that we can start to see, and we're seeing significant amount of batteries being incorporated at the lower level. I think Quintin could
Mhm.
probably speak to this because this is precisely what they're doing at their grid. No, but that's precisely the kind of thing that might be able to solve a little bit of this, because you can effectively cap your 100 kilowatts with a battery.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I was just thinking, as battery costs come down, it'll make more sense to stick to battery and storage rather than net metering. Quintin, let me go over to you.
Sure.
Now that your name's come up, but I've been meaning to ask you a question. Quintin, and my team, we've been to visit your facility in Sabang, and we were so impressed with the system. How many more do you have in the pipeline?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. So
For
we've got 24.
projects.
Yeah, so we basically have 24 now. I mean, majority will still be in Palawan. We have a nice portfolio of northern sites which are more tourism orientated, and then we have southern sites which are more agribusiness. It's a nice portfolio. And then we have a couple in northern Cebu on the outlying islands, and then in Polillo in eastern Philippines and Quezon. So those are nice case studies to show, as Miguel mentioned, an integrated decentralized last mile delivery that doesn't need a connection to the grid itself. So in that sense, it becomes a horses for courses approach, wherein these areas which have had no electricity are now fully 24/7.
And Quintin, how many will be? When do you plan to get these 24 online?
Okay, the first 16, which were awarded earlier, are all set for the next 12 to 14 months. And then the following ones will be overlapping, I suppose, in the next, let's say, next 6 to 18 months. We've received project financing already for the project financing structure is basically 30% equity, 70% financing. We have that model for the Sabang units. So at the end of the day, we will have these construction projects on stream. We've already begun with the Palawan ones.
Yeah, no, it's a good example, Quintin, and I'm surprised it doesn't take that long to bring them online. But it's a great system of the solar panels and the batteries, and then the smart metering system to small communities. So I take it to mean, Quintin, in this case, that smart metering that you do, then all the collections and payments goes through you as well?
Yes, absolutely. So it's an integrated service where the generator, transmission infrastructure, and the retail side. So we're effectively like the Meralco or the Paleco or the Sebec of the area. And what we've done, because we have smart meters, is so we're able to monitor consumption, but also give a prepaid option for the consumers. So that allows us more flexibility. That also allows us to monitor and also makes it the very demand side management based. But just a comment on the way these microgrids work, right? There's really a value migration and then an income generation, which is a virtuous circle. So, for example, in Palawan, our first microgrid after 2019, you had basically two hotels come in and expand their services. Like, for example, in this case, Four Point Sheraton with the 270 room hospital. That was the nice offset to just primarily providing to all the households, which already have a lot of suppressed demand. So as an investment, it works very well from a commercial developer, but the SDGs are felt all throughout because our mandate is to energize all the houses in the area using prepaid meters, using 24/7 power.
Yeah, this is one of the things I like about your project, Quintin, is the impact it had on the SDGs. By providing 24-hour power, you measured, internet usage going up, educational standards moving up, crime rates going down, business registrations rising, women-led businesses also rising. So all the indicators moving in the right direction, which is a great illustration of the effect that power, 24-hour power can have on a community. So I salute you guys for bringing that to more communities. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. And just as a final note on that, I mean, I think not all communities are static, right? A lot of them have ambitions, not necessarily to be highly urbanized cities, but to reach all their, development plans and targets. At the end of the day, energy is it's a sine qua non. No? It's the infrastructure that now enables them to reach their aspirations. As in this case with Puerto Princesa, that's one of their ambitions. They want to make sure this barangay was done well. And then, as we mentioned earlier, there are at least 200 sites out there that will be bid out for any developer that qualifies under the new law. And I think it's a great market to look at. And at the same time, the aspirations to be closer to the aspirations of, let's say, the highly urbanized cities, at least development indices wise, is there.
Great, thanks. Miguel and Makati, let me go to you. Can you give our audience here in the room and on Zoom an idea of, you talked about the savings, right? About 300 million over the life of the contract and 300,000 metric tons saved. No, what is the comparable rate on electricity between renewables and what you were getting before you signed up the agreement?
Maybe Miguel, are you? Well, in terms of Makati, we this particular agreement has to be understood that it affects only the generation portion. There's other costs to your electricity, such as distribution, transmission, and other costs therein. So the savings that we get, the percentage discount that we get is on the generation side, and that calculation was roughly, in terms of the generation cost, rough 10% discount, and which translates to the 300 million savings in 9 years.
And did I understand this correctly that switching to these renewables will also, under this arrangement, will also save you the 12% VAT, or you just get the lower rate on power? Is there a discount because you get a discount on the VAT as well?
So there are many different scenarios around which you can do pricing. Maybe before jumping into specifics of pricing, the first thing to highlight is that under retail competition, fundamentally, it falls outside of the ambit of the ERC's regulation. So, and it's precisely created that way to allow for bilateral negotiated pricing. So frankly, you can have any kind of pricing model that you want. You can do fixed pricing, you can do time of day pricing, you can come up with various models. Whenever we've talked to customers that are switching for the first time, we always recommend a discount against the distribution utility charge that you're already getting, because in that case, it's a certainty that it's a no regrets decision. And obviously, working with the LGUs is most important for us to ensure that the LGUs have a no regrets decisions, because obviously we're supporting not only the LGU in terms of their own savings, but also their constituents, right? We want to be able to ensure at least that the political decisions which motivated the commercial decisions are protected. So I think that's the first thing to kind of highlight. The second thing to highlight, at least what you're saying with respect to VAT inclusion or non-inclusion of VAT. That actually depends on specifics of the off-taker. So for instance, if you are a commercial facility, you might actually have no problem with taking on the input VAT because you'll be able to use an output VAT to use it. So the advantages around the exclusion of VAT are specific to the RE law, because under the RE law, all green energy electricity sales that are through the Green Energy Option Program exclude VAT. Exclude VAT if that's a driver of value, right? But there are requirements to be able to ensure that that happens, including, so we don't, without going too technical into it, including the declaration of bilateral contract quantities from a very, very specific asset. And this is what Liza was saying earlier about the issues around the RECs getting transferred to the distribution utility or not. So short answers, it can or it may not. It may not, but it really depends on the commercial interests of the off-taker.
Yeah, so the off-taker can actually measure it against what aligns best with their own interests. So it's in a way it becomes optional then.
Yes.
But I imagine for a city,
we'll let you know when our first billing comes out.
But I was going to say, I imagine for an LGU, then it makes more sense than for a commercial off-taker, right? I would say. Okay. Before I go back to the audience for a question, just imagine as a result of today's forum, there's a tidal wave of interest coming in from cities and from customers who want to go renewable. Can industry supply, and can industry meet demand? Can it supply enough?
I think the short answer is yes, because remember what I said earlier about retail simply being the carving out of a portion of contestable energy. So it's not like power disappears. It just changes the commercial model by which the sale happens. So for instance, we actually have a contract as ACEN with Meralco, right? So if suddenly everyone from Meralco moved over to a retailer, we would hope to be able to capture the same percentage of quantity that we are selling into Meralco, right? It's not like there's more power created or more power needed for it. The power exists within the system. It's complex because obviously you have to change commercial arrangements, who's buying and who's selling, right? But I can tell you from what I've seen, at least from the LGU demands, we're talking about some of the largest LGUs here, but you take one steel plant, you take one cement plant, they'll consume all the power that everyone here is using. So in the scheme of capacity, the LGUs don't use as much capacity as some of the larger industries. So there are many ways to answer it, but short is, I wouldn't be particularly worried.
Sure. Let me go back to the floor here for any additional questions. Yes, please.
Hello, good afternoon. My question is for Sir Raymond. Hello. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Dodgy from Power Green. Actually, we're one of your contractors for your Globe Telco solarization project. So that's what I observed in most of our projects or sites. You still use the conventional solar farm setup in installing the solar system in Globe telecommunication infrastructures. So the panels are installed on open greenfield areas, right? But right now, we are now using the BIPV technology. Have you heard about that? Wherein the solar panels can be installed on perimeter fences, on the walls, and on other suitable structure elements good for solar mounting. So would you consider that in your telecommunication sites to adopt that kind of system or technology?
Well, notwithstanding whether or not we will commit, but the short answer is yes. We're always exploring new technologies. And if after this you have a pitch, then why not? I think the idea here is being open to whatever solutions are out there. Remember, most of the installations that we have are already ongoing projects in terms of rollout and which have identified certain sites. But we are constantly looking at new technologies. At one point, I was actually asking one supplier if they could give me a solar power system that I can just latch to my window in the Globe Tower in BGC, because those are the things that we want to explore, whether it's a film or whether it's a new technology that we have less space requirements. So these things, yes, we are open to this, and if that's a conversation, then we can have that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Actually, the problems or the challenges kasi for those who don't know about the BIPV, kasi they always think that when you install solars, kailangan there's a roof. But now, there are instances kasi that the schedule of loads per residential houses or the area itself, the roof cannot accommodate the load, right? The solar panels cannot be accommodated on the roof, on the rooftop. So now we have this technology wherein we can utilize actually the walls, the glass doors, or whatever the structure, it's already building integrated.
That'll be good. That'll be a good conversation. I'm sure our LGU partners will be very interested also in such. So then we can have a conversation. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Ray, I have a question for you. You mentioned that Globe wants to contribute to the national target for renewables. So within Globe itself, how much of your electricity load is covered by renewables?
Okay, I have this as my código a while. Right now, our target actually for 2030 is around 42%. We're now at 34%. It's a good conversation looking at ACEN and the other LGCUs, because we started at a time wherein the market was really difficult looking at whether or not there are renewable sources or partners. We started out in 2018, 2019, and our co at that time didn't really require RE immediately, right? So what we did was we started out our larger sites and making sure we can identify those sites and what we can transition. I think the trade-off is how you understand how much of renewable energy capacity is out there and how much you can transition. And I already mentioned, even in my talk earlier, that we're very thankful for the new provisions, especially in the aggregation, just because we can now bring our own cell sites, which are lower demand. They're essentially like residential locations, right? And we can actually shift or cluster more of them. So right now we're at 34%, and we're hoping we can meet our target, and we are on track to meet our target by 2030, and eventually even contributing to the country's targets of 50% by 2050.
Great, thanks. So yeah, looks like you're well on your way to target. You're about 1/3 already powered by RE. Okay, before we close today, I want to give everyone a chance to maybe give one last message to advocate for the cause. Let me start from Liza, work around here to this side, and then go to Quintin last. So Liza, maybe some last thoughts you might want to share with our audience.
Renewable energy is not just a choice, but it is imperative. So it is already mandatory. So we cannot achieve the full energy transition without our responsibility. So this is a shared responsibility for all of us. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Liza. Ray?
I think just very quickly that it can be done. If at the beginning it seems like there are a lot of hurdles, a lot of challenges, at the end of the day, if you start the conversations, if you keep on the conversations, then you can get to that road of transitioning to renewable energy. And you really don't have to not believe the fact that renewable energy is the way, because I know that there's that argument now, that school of thought, that you don't really need to do RE because we have a lot of capacity for coal or what have you, fossil fuels. But it is something, like mentioned, it is really a responsibility at this point and not a choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Brian?
We've been traveling a lot lately, and we've encountered a lot of LGUs who are interested in shifting to renewable energy. And we always tell them that it's actually easy. We're going through the process right now, and it's nice to hear that some of the providers are saying politically we're covered, because that's what makes it easy for a lot of the chief executives, local chief executives, when they hear that politically they're going to be covered, because there's assured savings, of course, for the LGU, and of course, and clean energy at that.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Brian's saying, I think when local governments are taking the lead in terms of making very, very clear decisions about how to manage their energy, whether it be through rooftop, whether it be through switching to RE, whether it be through vehicles or whatnot, I think it sets a great inspiration to the rest of the populace within these local governments to, in turn, start to take control of their own energy. So I'm very excited to hear, in fact, what Brian was saying earlier about trying to get barangays or sitios even to start to work together to find ways to manage their energy. That's extremely, extremely exciting. I think we're going to see the dawn of a different way of managing energy if LGUs are taking the lead. So extremely exciting. And thank you for having us here.
Thank you. Thanks. William?
So for Makati, we're just really happy to be invited here. We're happy to be part of the conversation. We're glad to be able to inspire other LGUs. And if we can be of help, we will continue to push the boundaries. And if there's anyone that needs our assistance, we're here. You can contact us. Again, welcome to Makati.
Thank you. Engineer?
For Quezon City, as the only city member of the C40 cities, the Quezon City government is committed to environmental protection and climate change management. We say that renewable energy is the best way forward, and we look forward to all of our efforts in doing regulations the easiest way possible. We streamline processes, and we commit our infrastructure program aligned with these renewable energy efforts. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you, Engineer. And Quintin, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I mean, I'm very honored to be with a panel of people who are moving the needle, especially in terms of highly urbanized cities, retail electricity supply, and really making sure those renewable portfolio standards are in effect. The laws are clear. They obviously need to be refined. But I think the last mile delivery solutions is where the action is going to be moving towards. So we're happy to be in this fight on climate change for the 2.5 million households out there. And we're happy that we're also exploring collaboration with a number of the investors to make sure that we reach those households to reach the 100% target within the decade. So thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Quintin. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you in the audience for spending the afternoon with us here at AIM and over Zoom and over Facebook. I'd like to thank our speakers. I think here today we had a variety of ideas and strategies and pathways towards the same goal of adopting more renewable energy and of an energy transition. Not only for cities, but for corporates, for residences, and for enterprise. I like to think that what's driving us in this direction is not just cost savings, but really more of sustainability and of good for the environment, good for air quality, ultimately good for health. I think that's what we need to strive more in this energy transition game. And I also like that we not only talked about the usual electricity needs, but also some of the needs for electric vehicles, because I think we need to look at this in a connected way to move towards EVs and to use EV charging using renewables. And Brian, I have good news for you. You want to work with tricycle drivers. We'll introduce you. Our last collab just 2 weeks ago was on EVs, and in particular on 2 cities in the provinces which are using transitioning to electric tricycles. and using two different ownership systems, one through co-ops and one through city-owned tricycles. So you can see the cities outside are thinking of the same thing. So I like that we have generated a lot of ideas. I'm hoping that more cities are listening and absorbing and deciding and considering to move in this direction. I'm looking forward to the help from Mayor Francis as president of the League of Cities to also propagate the idea among more cities, and we'll work same with the League of Municipalities and with all local governments, because I think there's a lot of potential out there, not only for city uses, but for EVs as well. I want to, on behalf of Liveable Cities, thank you all for attending today's session. We look forward to receiving your feedback on this session. It allows us to better plan our sessions and to pick our speakers and to plan ahead with future topics. So thank you very much for answering our feedback survey. Lastly, we're going to close, but this does not end the session. We're going to serve merienda outside, so there's opportunity for you to network with our speakers and with each other, and to exchange more ideas and to push these ideas and advocate for more competitive, sustainable, resilient, livable cities all over the country. Thank you very much, and we look forward to having you in our next Liveable Cities Lab. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Boss, as always. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Really, thank you.
Once again, to our participants joining us here on site at the Asian Institute of Management, we invite you to stay for light refreshments just outside. Our ushers will be happy to guide you. Finally, kindly stay and complete the feedback form flashed on your screens or scan the QR code. Your input helps us improve future sessions, and you will also receive your certificate of participation afterwards. Thank you all for being part of today's conversation. The transition to cleaner, more resilient energy for cities begins with exactly the kind of dialogue we had today. We hope you leave with new insights, new connections, and a clearer path forward. Stay safe, and we hope to see all of you at the next event on Circular Economy Collab in the Loop Localized Circular Economy in Practice on June 24th, Wednesday, exactly 2 weeks from now. Thank you and good afternoon.